Welcome to the Industry 4.0 Club's Fireside Chat. The club's purpose is to engage the power of diverse worldwide talent to accelerate the global evolution to Industry 4.0. We accomplish this by hosting and supporting respectful, thoughtful, and interdisciplinary conversations and creating quality content on wide-ranging Industry 4.0 topics to expand the reach of our community. My name is Mike Ungar, and I am the CEO of the Industry 4.0 Club. I have over 40 years of experience, most of that in manufacturing at Michelin. Our broadcast today is a joint broadcast with the C4I4 Lab, the Center for Industry 4.0 based in Pune, India. Our co-host today is Ankita Sharma. She's the marketing business lead for the lab. Ankita, welcome, and would you please introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about the lab?
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Hi, everyone. I am Ankita Sharma. I serve as a marketing business lead for C4I4 Lab. It's a premier institute developed by Ministry of Heavy Industries, Government of India. It's a premier hub of Industry 4.0 ecosystem, which talks about Industry 4.0 awareness, training programs, Industry 4.0 solutions, and it actually handholds Indian manufacturing sector in developing the digital roadmap. So we are a go-to entity for Industry 4.0, and we are based out of Pune, and we have different locations across India, which we'll be giving the details in the comment box.
Thanks, Ankita. I appreciate it a lot. So our topic today is called Servitization, radically changing the business model for equipment manufacturers. And we're really excited to have Jan Pingel join us. He's the product leader for digital solutions at Ingersoll Rand and one of our Industry 4.0 Club co-founders. Jan has spent over 20 years at the intersection of manufacturing and technology, turning raw production data into insights through IoT, cloud, and digital twins solutions. With a master's in electrical engineering and certifications in agile, design sprints, and facilitation, he blends technical expertise with a knack for helping teams innovate and collaborate. At his core, Jan is driven by building both smarter systems and stronger human connections. So welcome, Jan. We're glad to have you as part of the broadcast today.
Thank you very much for the nice introduction.
So, Ankita, do you want to start with our first question?
Yeah, sure, Mike. So, Jan, thank you for coming with us on the podcast. So, you were born and went to school in Denmark. Would you like to share a little bit about your journey to the United States and eventually to the, Ingersoll Rand?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah, as you probably have heard already now, they have a little bit of an accent that I can't get rid of. So, yeah, I'm born in Denmark. I got my master's in Technical University of Denmark, master's in electrical engineering. And from there, I started working for a healthcare company, software company, that ultimately took me to the US to lead a subsidiary in upstate New York. That healthcare company was also a life science company. It got me into life science, from there into industrial automation. And from there, I went to work for Rockwell Automation in the early 2000s. And after that, over to Honeywell. And both companies, I was leading their historian as a product leader. In Rockwell Automation, it was the old size of pie that was rebranded Factory Talk Automation, and then in Honeywell started out with what's called PhD, and then later started looking into cloud historian and cloud solutions as well, from an IoT cloud perspective. And but the last since around 2010. I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina, and so that kind of brought me to look for local companies, and that got me into Ingersoll Rand. Now, Honeywell has since then moved to Charlotte, so this is a different thing, but at the time, this seemed like a very interesting opportunity. And so there in Ingersoll Rand, I'm leading our digital solutions. Where we're utilizing IoT to provide service information for our own organization, as well as information back to our customers around the asset performance, We provide asset insights, service information, service notifications, and now I'm engaged in a whole broader user experience around everything between us and our customer to provide that in a customer portal type functionality where we
So,
not only look.
Yin,
Yeah,
can you simplify the concept of servitization for us and for people who are listening to us?
absolutely.
Because I know you have been telling a lot about services, but I want you to just explain it first so that people are not confused about the concepts as well. So
Yep,
that would
yep.
be great. Yeah.
So servitization is it's not a it seems like a new term. Not a lot of people know the term, but it was introduced in about 1980, 1990, and the idea of um, manufacturers, equipment manufacturers, finding something that would let them stand out from the competition. So if you think about typical manufacturers that provide a piece of equipment for manufacturing, they develop their equipment, they go sell it, and then they might service it, but it's like a one-time sale. The customer will then run it, maintain it until it gets too old, and then it gets replaced by either something from the same vendor or from another vendor. Servitization kind of changed that from a perspective of not just that initial sale, but a relationship with that end customer or manufacturer on that asset. First of all, so that you can better maintain that piece of equipment, you can extend its lifetime, and you can extend its value both for the manufacturer of that equipment and as well as the end customer manufacturer that's utilizing that equipment. But it does require some thought changes and systems. So, for example, one key aspect of servitization is IoT. IoT is really critical because you want to know what's going on with that piece of equipment that you
Yeah.
are now maintaining. And so, go ahead.
Yeah. So you mentioned IoT. So in the last decade, we've seen a lot of changes in technology. And so just take us through maybe from early days to now, what kind of technologies come along that's really made this maybe even a preferred business model?
Yeah, IoT is the one of the critical elements of this. So in the past, if you think 20, 25 years ago or even more, um, vendors could put a modem on a site and maybe get access to a PLC and be able to go online and fix things. IoT changed that completely from the perspective. It's not just about going online, but it's getting continuous data from the equipment back to the vendor, the OEM, to know what's going on with that machine. And so that's really the critical portion of being able to go into this space from a servitization perspective, is that not only do you sell the equipment, but you now are maintaining it and servicing it, but you also on top of what's going on with that piece of equipment. You're not sitting there waiting for the customer to call you and say something is wrong. You will probably often get that message about the machine having issues before the end customer even realizes it.
Well, yeah, that's interesting because I remember a day when a long time ago where a company would have repair people across the country, right, to be close to their equipment, right, so they could dispatch them to fix something. Even one per state or one based upon the density of where the equipment was. So how has this changed that?
It doesn't necessarily change it. It actually enhances that. If you are getting into servitization where you are maintaining equipment, you're not you need to have either partners or your own service technicians that is close to the site. Because again, if you're manufacturing, the biggest thing that you try to avoid is unscheduled downtime. So if anything happens, you want to at least minimize that as much as possible. And so having technicians close by that first of all are notified as soon as something happens and being dispatched to the customer sometimes before the customer even knows about it, and then be able to come in very early and to fix something. So especially if the machine breaks down during the night shift, whatever, you can have somebody early in the morning come and fix it right away, and then you're not blocked in your day shift, for example, right? So, but servitization is the aspect of the vendors taking full responsibility of that piece of equipment, all the way to the point where the ultimate state of servitization is what's called like outcome as a service. So if you're thinking about Ingersoll Rand, we're in the compressed air business. We're selling compressors. Now think of that instead of we're selling compressed air. A good example of that is you're familiar with Rolls-Royce. They're one of the major manufacturers of airplane engines. They don't sell airplane engines anymore. They sell air miles. So how many miles a plane flies in the air is what Rolls-Royce is selling to the various different airlines when they buy an airplane. And so that's the ultimate state of that, is to be able to sell the outcome as a service.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier the advancement of IoT. How has IoT made servitization a more profitable business model?
So there's various examples of that. One of the examples I usually use is for Ingersoll Rand is before we deployed IoT for our service organization, we had a state where I think it was 65% of all our trips where we had to go and fix something was a one trip. We will go there, go fix it, and come back. That meant that 35% was 2 or more trips. And every trip can be expensive, right? I mean, and some of the more expensive equipment, we have to even take an airplane to go there because we don't have that many specialized technicians for it. So it can be very expensive. When we deployed IoT, what we saw is that 90% was now 1 trip or less, and only 10% was 2 trips or more. And of the 90%, 50% of that was 0 trip. We could identify something in the data that says, hey, this customer is doing something different, and it looks like what we've seen before. Like an air compressor, of course, have an intake of air. If you put a box, empty cardboard box up against the intake, it's going to affect the machine. If you open the barn doors because it's hot outside, well, that hot air will also affect the machines. When you leave at night, instead of turning the machine properly off, you pull the emergency brake or emergency stop, and then the next shift don't know how to start it again. All those small things that in the past we would get a call, the machine doesn't start. We would have to go on site, and all we did was just press the emergency stop, and then we left again, right? Now, 50% of that, we can just call them and says, hi, what are you doing differently? Are you doing this or that? Oh, yeah, you're right. Go change that, and machine's up and running again. And we don't have to even go to the customer. So because our service, our service levels that we do today, we take full responsibility of the equipment. And that means that we get an annual fee, and the rest for us is just cost. So whatever we can do to reduce our costs, like reduce the number of trips or even not go out, that's down to our bottom line, of course, right? And so that's really a key that IoT is bringing to that, is that we are able to respond very quickly, and oftentimes we're able to respond just by calling up the customer and make a minor change to what they're doing, and the machine's up and running again.
No, that's really quite interesting. I think the examples you shared, it's amazing to think that just through technology, through IoT, you're able to reduce that. So, I'm guessing then that your equipment is very highly sensitive as well. Yeah. Did I freeze on you? Excuse me. Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yeah, it froze on me, but now I can hear you. Yeah.
Great. It's interesting to think that IoT has impacted your business that well. It means also to me that you must be censoring your equipment quite extensively now. How has that technology impacted your business?
So we are doing something on our larger equipment. by adding more sensors. But some of the typical equipment, we're connecting to the control system, and the controls are still operating on the same sensors. But we are looking at not just sensors on the equipment, but also sensors downstream. So we're providing now solutions that not just takes care of the compressors, but takes care of the compressor room itself. So optimizing, let's say a compressor room has 3 compressors. There will be times during the day you only need 1 compressor. There'll be times you need 2, times you need 3. Able to manage that and cycle those compressors appropriately, we can now extend the life of all the compressors as opposed to just the number 1 always runs all the time and 2 runs sometimes and 3 runs very little. We can change that so they run more evenly. And we can also have them run at levels where they're using the least energy required. So that's another thing. And then the real big thing that has happened is machine learning. Because again, talking about downtime, we can come and fix a machine very quickly when we know what's going on. But if we can ahead of time identify an issue before it ever even happens, that's much better, right? So now we're using machine learning on our portfolios and are able to sometimes identify issues 1 day ahead of time, a week ahead of time, sometimes even 10 to 15 days ahead of time. Just by seeing there's a trend, there's a pattern that machine is showing that compares to something we've seen before. Because we know what can happen when the machine goes down. What we can now try to do is to avoid that even happening by interjecting. Like it could be simple things like your filter is going to get clogged. Replace the filter before that happens. So you can find a downtime that's reasonable. Replace the filter, it doesn't happen. But it can be some bigger things that we have to come out and do a reman on a machine or something. But now we can schedule that so it matches what the customer can provide us of time, as opposed to waiting until it actually happens in the middle of high production, right?
So, Jan, when we are talking about the data sharing part in India, if I can, talk about here the perspective about data sharing, there are a lot of resilience, and people are having some misconceptions also of getting the data loosen up to the, to the equipment manufacturer who's actually servitizing it. So, can you just break those myths for us? How's the data
Absolutely,
sharing part? Yeah.
absolutely. So there's a couple aspects to it. One is, of course, the who owns the data. And every vendor will try to have a contract where it says that they own their data, but will provide the data to the end customer as a copy for whatever they would need. Um, the aspects of it, of course, is that some of the equipment that has it is production equipment, and some are more like utility equipment. Like, for example, compressed air is typically a utility, whereas a bottler is a production equipment, right? And so there's specific, like the utility type equipment, the customer is not as they don't have as many issues around it. Whereas if it's a production equipment, you can see what they're doing. You might be able to read a recipe, etc. And so they're more conscious about that type of data. So we try to first of all identify how secure our solution is. We have white papers that we share with our customers, so they know exactly how we're taking care of cybersecurity, and then also exactly what data are we pulling, so they know exactly what data do we have compared to what data they might not want to share. And so that's one part of it. The other part is the cybersecurity aspect of it. So depending on how you are able to pull the data from the equipment, do you, for example, need to get on the end customer's network to pull data off? Do they need to send data back out, etc.? So, for example, from our perspective, and I think that's what most OEMs are doing now, is they're connecting their own edge device directly to a OPC port or Modbus or Profibus or something like that, and then they're using cellular network to pull the data. That means that that equipment is not even connected to the end customers network. That means you cannot really use that as a gateway to go in. It can be
Okay.
very, very hard to do that. So that's two aspects of it. So first of all, what data are you pulling, and what can that potentially, if somebody get access to, what could that do? And then the other thing is, can the equipment be used to backdoor into the customer's network, right? And that's even
Okay.
more critical for most of our customers. And in our case, there's I, I don't see any way somebody can go backdoor through Modbus back into a Ethernet, whatever. But you never know. But at least it's not a simple thing as just a IP address on the network that you can find your way through, right?
So can we say that there is a sense of ownership of the data, and even it's safe to share some part of it so that your life of the equipment is enhanced in that way?
Absolutely. I think we've had various conversations with large end customers around the data structure. So, for example, um, if you look at any large manufacturer, they might have 10 compressors in a plant. And we could run analytics on top of those 10 compressors on site if we wanted to. That would give us information about what those 10 pieces of equipment is doing. But because we're connected to 10,000, a level of an analytics we can provide that can feed back to those 10 compressors that site is completely different. So we've had customers that initially said, we would like to get your logic and your machine learning models and run that on our own systems. And we're saying, well, it's going to be hard, first of all, but secondly, you really want the analytics that's running on 10,000 pieces of equipment as opposed to 10, because then you'll get much more value out of it. And
Right.
they understand it. So it's like initially it's like protective, but then when they kind of understand that, first of all, the data we're collecting is not really critical. It doesn't provide any real information about the production on the site. But it's very critical to us, first of all, but it can also be very critical for them to get the right analytics and the right insights on what they should do to provide to best maintain their equipment. A lot of manufacturers asked us, well, can you tell us what's best in class in our industry? Well, we couldn't do that if we were not connected to all the assets out there, as opposed to just connected to theirs, right?
Right.
That's really interesting. I'm listening to you talk about this, and I'm switching my mind to a company that's a large company. So you're providing this as an external provider to a company, but I can imagine the same logic and approach would apply to a company with several plants with the same equipment, and they could have an internal expert in central doing a lot of the work in managing the equipment and therefore reducing the amount of on-site expertise required for that equipment. Is that the same thought process?
Yeah, absolutely. We if you really look at what manufacturers are struggling with today is a skills gap on the plant floor, right? And so they will hire technicians for very, very critical piece of equipment, but they would go back to the vendors of the more less critical equipment typically. And some like that is like compressors and other standard equipment that all manufacturers have. They would know how to run them, but they have had a harder time know how to run them the best and also how to maintain them well. And that's where they more rely on companies like us to maintain our equipment at their site. Because it is a problem with now you have new technicians that are coming in. They're used to finding solutions by Googling what's going on, right? As opposed to a technician that's been working for the company for 25 years. I mean, he can hear on the compressor when there's something wrong, right? Because he's been doing it for so long. it's definitely changing, and that's where we can come in with these types of offerings and provide that level of service that those customers need, so that they can offset the skills gap onto the vendor instead. The other thing that when you talk about benefits of servitization is, when you go to the level of either outcome as a service, like the Rolls-Royce example, or in our case, we typically sell the compressors, but then we do a 5 to 10 year service contract, or 3 to 10 year, depending on the customer. And that service contract is a fixed price per year. So now you can actually take that as a percentage of your production, assign that to your bill of material, more or less, right? And that's really where servitization is going. Is if you can sell the outcome as a cost of the product bill of material, you now have a much better idea of exactly where your revenue lies and what kind of levels you can control, and you don't have to worry about if the machine now suddenly has to be replaced, because that's typically part of the service. It's you're paying this amount every year or every month or every quarter, whatever, and that covers everything that has to be fixed, or even to the point of if the machine has to be replaced.
Okay. So, Yen, do you think servitization is for everyone? Like every manufacturer someday or the other has to move to this business model? Like, how do you see the horizon of this business model of servitization?
Yeah, so I think every manufacturer has to think about servitization, but there is levels of it, right? I mean, I mentioned the outcome as a service. That one can be hard for some. Like even in our world for compressors, we don't have exactly the compressed air as a service. We have what's called compressed air over the fence. Because one of the things that becomes an issue is ownership, location. So if I have a piece of equipment that's the size of a camper, if I put that on the customer's manufacturing floor, well, who is maintain that area? Who pays for the electricity to run it? How about the insurance? What if the plant gets on fire or whatever? There's all kinds of different aspects of it you got to think of. So what we typically in our industry is doing, we're doing compressed air over the fence. That means that we will either buy or rent a little plot of land right next to the customer, and we will build a little building, or some of the compressors can also be outdoors, so they'll be on a little flat concrete plate, and there will be the compressors, and then there'll be a pipe that goes over the fence over to the customer, and then they'll get compressed air as a service. But then we own and maintain that entire site as ours, and we would then also have the insurance and all that other stuff, right? So there are definitely some hurdles and some things to think about how you do that. Some of them is easy, like most companies have a copier or printer installed that's owned by the vendor, and because it's a less of a high value asset, cost wise, etc., it's easier to handle. Whereas a multi-$100,000 compressor sitting in the manufacturing plant is a little bit different.
Yeah. Do you see any technology coming down the pike that will evolve the model as well, or what are your thoughts there?
I think some of the AI, both machine learning, but to some extent maybe even generative AI, is definitely going to help manufacturers getting into this easier. There are more now automated models. There are more ways to easier develop these machine learning models with I wouldn't say off the shelf, but more easier to consume technologies, because that's a critical part of it is not just getting the data, but also be able to utilize the information you're getting from the machine. But be able to, for example, run machine learning across hundreds of similar machines and learn from that, as opposed to just looking at an individual machine to see how it's performing. So in order to really capitalize on the technology, you got to utilize some of those more advanced aspects of it. So I see that coming down. There's also some potential obstacles, which is regulation. EU has been starting to taking their privacy rules into the equipment space as well, and I don't think it's completely clear exactly what that's going to mean. But I also seeing them stepping back a little bit on some of it, because they know that those hurdles are just going to stop, or it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt the business, and so we'll see where that ends up. But that's definitely something that everybody's looking at as well, to see what that will mean in the future.
Fantastic. Well, we've been talking for about the last 30 minutes with Jan Pingel from Ingersoll Rand about servitization. And as we wrap up, Jan, maybe Ankita, maybe we start with you. Do you have a final takeaway from the conversation today that you maybe would share with the audience?
Yes, I think so. By far, what I have understood from servitization, and in fact, in my PhD thesis research as well, while I'm doing it on Industry 4.0 and the financial performance, I have been reading a lot about it, how it's changing the business model. But I think there is a lot to work about, because it's, first of all, we have to get the equipments, get the data flowing. So first of all, that's very important, and the resilience have to be, taken care of, where it's not about just sharing your data. It's actually getting the analytics better and getting your equipment enhanced. So I think that is one sort of mindset that we need to shift to look at it from the other perspective, and definitely is going to help the manufacturers a lot. So that is going to be my takeaway from today's podcast.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, any final thoughts for our audience as well?
Yeah, I would say if you're an equipment manufacturer, you should definitely look at how you can step into the space if you're not already there, and then potentially look at what level you want to get into it, and continue to evolve, potentially to get into outcome as a service if possible. Although it is a hurdle. One thing we didn't really talk about is also when you change the business model from selling a piece of equipment to selling a service that is going to be covering maybe 5-10 years, as opposed to first. There's definitely some things you got to think about when you're changing that whole business model. And if you're a manufacturer buying equipment, I would say look at your critical assets in your production. See, offer a service that takes some of the risk away and provide more a direct method to translate your equipment cost to your revenue. Is something to look at, because it's going to be more and more critical for manufacturers to be able to provide solutions where they have more control over their outcome. And if you're looking at just buying equipment and running it yourself, there's a lot of unknowns. Whereas if you can control that with your OEM taking care of it, I think that's something to look into, especially for high value assets, critical assets in your manufacturing.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Jan, thanks for taking the time out of your schedule to spend a few minutes with us to talk about servitization and really the practical aspect of it on and the implications for business. So thank you.
Absolutely. Happy to be here. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Yeah, so the C4I4 Lab and the Industry 4.0 Club would like to encourage you to take action to advance the deployment of Industry 4.0. Read an article, attend a workshop, develop a smart manufacturing roadmap, or encourage those around you to do something similar. It's important that we try to help our organizations evolve to integrate Industry 4.0 into their toolkit. We'd like to know what kind of actions you're taking, so reach out to us on our website. And let me just start. Here's the website for the C4I4 Lab. They're a great resource. Let them know what you're doing. They're a great resource for advice and support as well. and the Industry 4.0 Club website as well. Let us know what you're doing and the kind of things that you're accomplishing with respect to Industry 4.0. We have conversations like this routinely on LinkedIn Live and YouTube, and we'd love to have you as a guest. So reach out to us if you'd like to be part of our conversations. And with that, Jan, Ankita, thank you so much for the time this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
Yeah,
Jan.
have a great week and a great rest of the day.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you.